Exclusive contract with Feilu Novel Network Novel. 3 Kingdoms. Beginning with LV Bu and breaking through the heavens when LV Bu, who had traveled through the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty and possessed the power of Li Yuanba's 4 elephants, resolutely chose to support the Han family and save the Shao Emperor with his own strength. The alliance of 18 feudal lords was pierced by his own strength. What are the 3 surnames of domestic slaves? Now he is General Han Fei, Marquis Guan Wu, General Shenwei Tian, and among the people, Liu Xie. This is my general's father, the humerus of the Great Han. When the Great Han was once again unified, Liu Bu ascended to the sky and broke through the sky in front of everyone, leaving behind endless legends. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Just arrived at the end of Han Dynasty, just extinguished the Overlord. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the late Eastern Han Dynasty, 10 constant attendants roam the court and fields. The chaos of the court system led to severe land consolidation, and local powerful forces emerged one after another. The emperor was incompetent, leading to constant struggles among eunuchs and relatives, and the country's strength became increasingly weak. Natural and man-made disasters, plagues rampant. Drought plagues the land, and starving people travel thousands of miles. The public's grievances are boiling and unbearable. Under such dense coverage and intertwined suffering, the desperate people under the rule of the Eastern Han Dynasty, under the temptation of the giant deer people, chose to rise up one after another. Finally, a massive yellow turban uprising broke out. In order to quell the rebellion, various regions supported their troops with self-respect. Although the uprising ultimately ended in failure. However, the situation of warlord separatism and the downfall of the Eastern Han Dynasty is also irreversible. As Emperor Ling of Han Lu Hong passed away in the Jiada Palace, the succession of Emperor Liu Bian to the throne resulted in an increasing backlog of conflicts. Due to Liu Bian's young age and lack of knowledge, Empress Dowager He temporarily took over the government, while Empress Dowager Dong, the mother of Emperor Ling, conspired to participate in political affairs. Internal strife in the harem. Imperial power has also become even more declining. The struggle between eunuchs and their relatives is becoming increasingly fierce in order to gain special control over imperial power. Both sides are willing to use all means to exclude each other, engage in open and secret struggles, and fight to the death. Dong Zhuo, who was well aware of the factional disputes in the imperial court, was secretly delighted upon hearing the news of the death of Emperor Ling. He, who had long had a plan, arranged personnel to closely monitor the movements of various forces from the imperial court, and was ready to take corresponding measures and act according to the situation. Under cover, he established the relationship with Empress Dowager Dong, gathered troops, and led troops into the capital for several days. And according to the meaning of General He Jin, he wrote a letter to the Shao Emperor, requesting to drive away the evil of the emperor's side and accept the surrendering army to clean up corruption and filth. In the end, under the stimulation of the eunuch's counterattack, General He Jin was killed by the eunuch. Later, Yuan Shao and others who entered the palace executed all the eunuchs. The last benefit was stolen by Dong Zhuo. Dong Zhuo wanted to further expand his influence, so he attempted to depose Emperor Liu Bian and appoint Prince Chen Liu Xie as the new ruler. Ji Jinwu Ding Yuan was furious and led his army to engage in a fierce battle outside the city. In this battle, Ding Yuan led by Liu Bu as the vanguard and killed Dong Zhuo as the leader of the Western Liang army, retreating more than 30 miles down the fortress. In the end, Li Su, a subordinate of Dong Zhuo, suggested that he combine with 1,000 taels of gold, dozens of pearls, and a jade belt, as well as the red rabbit in BMW. He said that Liu Bu was the opposite. That night, LV Bu carried his knife and entered Ding Yuan's tent. General Shao, hold Ding Yuan's head and meet Li Su. Li Su then led LV Bu to meet Dong Zhuo. At the end of the 6th year of Zhongping, 189 AD. Dong Zhuo, overjoyed, bestowed a golden armor and brocade robe on him, worshipped the Zhonglang general, and was appointed as the Marquis of the capital pavilion. Both sides drank freely and dispersed. It's night, the eastern capital of Luoyang. After a hangover, Lu Bu suddenly woke up. Where is this? A murderous aura burst out from the burly and heroic body. A sharp gaze like a blade scanned the room. Then, his gaze froze for a moment. The whole person seemed to have been hit hard by a blunt object, and the brain buzzed. A large memory flooded into my mind. General. The personal guard guarding the door, hearing the commotion in the room, quickly drew his sword and rushed into the room, protecting Lu Bu. No, it's okay, you guys go down. In front of him, like a fleeting light, he quickly leaped over a few blurry figures, and a large amount of memories began to fill his mind, causing Lu Bu's brain to swell slightly. Rubbing his temples, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. At this point, this Lu Bu is no longer the other Lu Bu. At least, it's no longer the Lu Bu who only knows how to rely on martial courage to run rampant. He's crazy. When I woke up, I actually crossed thousands of years and became Lu Bu. It's not that I despise Lu Bu. At least he is also the leader of the Three Kingdoms generals known as Lu Bu and the Red Rabbit in the Horse. Whether it's the popular Three England war against Lu Bu. Later, the Horse fought alone against the 6 Tiger generals under Cao Cao's command. His personal martial arts skills are widely recognized as the top ranked in the Three Kingdoms. Riding the strongest horse. Sleeping the most beautiful beauty. Be the most beautiful guy. From a single perspective, it can be said that Lu Bu has reached the pinnacle of his life. But even so, I never thought about traveling through such things. After all, life in the past was peaceful. I have passed the age of cynicism again, and there is really no desire to go back and change history. He doesn't feel like that material either. In the novel, it is enough to make everyone dream of a place to travel. When it really fell on him, Lu Bu's mind was only filled with the 3 words MMP. According to the logical development of the novel, it travels through the most brilliant period of the Eastern Han and Three Kingdoms in history. In this situation, one should have been rubbing their hands and eager to try. A good man makes great achievements and aspires to all directions. Unfortunately, at this time, Lu Bu had just completed the operation of accepting Dong Zhuo's persuasion and killing Ding Yuan to eliminate the tyrant. Fortunately, the only change was that I had not yet worshipped Dong Zhuo as my adoptive father. This cannot be achieved. Otherwise, if this continues, the title of a 3-surname domestic slave may not be washed away. Loyal and righteous people are admirable in any era, even enemies. Master Guan is just like that. Even if there is a slight flaw in personality, it is still revered as a martial saint by future generations. Even with the passage of time and the change of dynasties, the city may easily change its royal flag. In later generations, when discussing the world's famous generals, there are many praises and criticisms. When it comes to Guan Yu, the most frequently mentioned aspect is not his ability to gallop among 10,000 armies, wielding the courage of 10,000 enemy soldiers. But rather his unyielding pride and unwavering loyalty. In contrast, Lu Bu's actions of killing Ding Yuan first and then Dong Zhuo, betraying him twice and killing his father twice, have been ridiculed by people. Although the results have led to Lu Bu's steady progress. The consequence that can be exchanged is that it will leave a lasting impression. Even though he is full of martial courage, he has always been despised by the world. After all, preconceptions in people's hearts are like a mountain, and once something is determined, it is really difficult to change. Perhaps from the perspective of Lu Bu's original body. He, who comes from a frontier, can only have an infinite future if he seizes everything he has now, works hard to fight, and kill. Survival of the fittest is the norm in the food chain. Moreover, from an objective perspective, Ding Yuan cannot be considered a great benefactor to Lu Bu. Since the uprising in Zhouyuan, Lv Bu has been serving in Bingzhou because of his skillful archery and bravery. As a result, under Ding Yuan's command, he had always held the position of chief clerk. What is a main ledger? The ancient officials' offices all had a chief clerk and an official, from the 3 officials and the imperial censorate, to the 9 temples and 5 supervisors, and even to the counties and counties. In other words, it refers to the assistant officials in charge of documents under the main officials at all levels. Civil service. I don't know whether Ding Yuan was cultivating Lu Bu's character to suppress him, or simply to seize military power. In Lu Bu's eyes, it is the latter. After all, Lv Fengxian is an unparalleled warrior in the world. Even a person, with a halberd in their hand and a horse in their crotch, should have been famous all over the world and held great power. As a result, I stubbornly wasted time in the position of the chief clerk. As the saying goes, how can one hear that a wealthy man is not depressed and has been living in poverty for a long time? So, how can he not hate Ding Yuan? So, when Dong Zhuo used the position of BMW Red Rabbit to lure Lu Bu to kill Ding Yuan, appointed him as the cavalry captain, and promised to be promoted to the rank of Zhonglang General and conferred the title of Dooding Marquis, Lu Bu was shaken. He has a wolf-like nature in his bones. Lu Bu originally thought he could take this opportunity to break free from the constraints of a military chief and climb to a higher position. I feel that I can finally have a better platform for development aspirations, and I can finally make myself proud and become a good person, and it is legitimate. But I didn't expect to lose more as a result. These days, those who are rulers are most afraid of being rebellious, especially those who appear loyal on the surface and stab in the back. Now that I have regenerated this, I must make good use of my prior knowledge and avoid risks. However, he has now boarded Dong Zhuo's ship and cannot get off for a while. So, we must find a way to get through this period of time and then find another way out. Dong Zhuo's current power is indeed top-notch in the world. However, it cannot withstand the continuous decline of this product. After taking over the great power of the world, especially after personally abolishing the old emperor and supporting the new ruler, the majesty of imperial power in Dong Zhuo's eyes is probably completely gone. The unbridled and unrestrained release and indulgence have gradually engulfed and corrupted the once fierce general of Xiliang by the desire for power. Few people are able to maintain clarity and self-reflection at all times. The vast majority of people will get lost in the flattery after gaining power or fame, and truly feel good about themselves, which they deserve. Year after year, I bear the burden of hardship and hate, making wedding clothes for others. It has to be said that Dong Zhuo did indeed do many things that people wanted to do but couldn't do. Whether it is the scholars of the world or the various feudal lords, they must not be inferior to Dong Zhuo. What should we do? Thinking about it makes people despair. Liu Bu sighed and touched his face with his hand. He is not a person who enjoys self-pity and self-blame. So, in the end, he accepted fate and traveled back thousands of years to become the eponymous Lu Bu. Anyway, the road that Liu Bu walked through in his past life, he won't take anything this time. If we follow the trajectory of historical development, we will endure the days of turmoil and oppression, until we are defeated in battle in Xiapi, captured alive by Cao Cao, and finally end our lives on the White Gate Tower. I finally came to this world and embarked on a journey. How can one be willing to be so mediocre and do nothing? How could it be possible to calmly accept such a tragic outcome? Fortunately, it's still early and he still has many opportunities. I believe that as long as there is a good layout, everything will still be in time. Now, if Lu Bu wants to ensure his own safety and status, he must firmly grasp the military power in his hands. 20,000 soldiers from Bingzhou. 8,000 wolf riders from Bingzhou. Nowadays, Lu Bu knows exactly what is the foundation of his own existence. As the saying goes, political power emerges from the barrel of a gun. He must firmly grasp the control of this army. Whether in his past or present life, Lu Bu never believed that a sudden surge of Wang Ba's aura could lead to a bloody plot where everyone from all directions came to submit. That is a scene in mindless Xiaobeiwen, which does not match his temperament and abilities. Moreover, different people have different needs. Some people pursue money, while others are greedy for power. Some people are lascivious, while others don't want anything. Some people are devoted to serving the people, while others pursue their own selfish interests. It is a foolish idea to expect everyone to obey commands unconditionally, just like robots and NPCs. Since we have completely decided to accept everything that the character, Lu Bu, has, then we need to operate it well. Not to mention strategizing, we also need to be cautious, right? I hope to win over most people's hearts, otherwise I'll just run away. I don't know if it's helplessness or a happy self-deprecation. Liu Bu murmured in his mouth, and a hint of determination flashed in his eyes. Chapter 2. The Power of the Four Symbols. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The worries in Lu Bu's heart did not last long. In reality, the situation that needs to be faced. It hasn't fallen to the point where he really needs to run away. Perhaps it can be said that the original ruling power in this Bingzhou army was even more profound than Lu Bu had imagined. In the previous Bingzhou army, if the nominal highest commander was Ding Yuan. So for the soldiers in the army, the most intimidating person is undoubtedly the Flying General Lu Bu. Bingzhou Flying General. The Courage of the Tiger. 10,000 enemies. These titles crowned upon him. But all of them are the illustrious names created by their original body, LV Bu, who has been leading the way for many years, fighting through obstacles and obstacles. Adding Zhang Yi, the former governor of Bingzhou, Ding Yuan was only promoted to the position of governor of Bingzhou for a short period of time after he was sent out to suppress the rebellion and was jointly attacked and killed by Xiutu and the Hu tribes. So, there was actually no strong attachment relationship between Ding Yuan and these subordinates from Bingzhou. That's also why, even though his original identity was Lu Bu, after choosing to kill Ding Yuan, there was no reason for the mutiny on the side of the Bingzhou army. Even those soldiers who do not approve of his actions. At most, it just disperses on its own. In the end, Lu Bu, who was carrying anxiety, did not even use any fancy words or make any passionate statements. Just strolling around the military camp, most of the Bingzhou army had already chosen to follow. It may sound a bit absurd, but it can also indirectly reflect the status and prestige of Lu Bu, the original body, in this Bingzhou army. At this moment, Lu Bu now has gained the greatest reliance on which he came to this world. The essential golden finger for crossing time. The number of Deyang is 50, and its usage is 9 out of 40. Congratulations, Your Excellency. We have officially started our life choice. Battlegrounds/Generals, Competition Chapter. Obtain the ability to summon famous generals from various heavens, compete for the throne of a lifetime, establish an imperial court, and summon any historical famous general after the Han Dynasty to reclaim their own use. Note. Each historical famous general appears, and the initial loyalty value is in the full state. Brave Martial Arts Chapter. By gaining the power of the four symbols of Tang Dynasty's Li Yuanba and assisting one faction in pacifying chaotic times, one can obtain the qualification to travel through the next world. Note. The more orthodox the imperial power of the faction, the wider the territory, and the higher the boundary for opening the next world. Liu Bu's eyes were a bit stunned. Sensing the choices that arise in my mind. Good guy. He's not wearing the world naked. I also have the blessing of a golden finger. As for life choices. Is there any other choice he needs to make? How can one obtain the ability to summon famous generals from all heavens? If there is no second option. If one were to be revered for a lifetime, it would be great to have 3,000 beautiful women in the harem and experience the corruption of feudal society. However, If there is a second option, the first one will completely become unpopular. After all external forces are ultimately just external forces. Only with one's own strength is the true foundation. This is the ancient Han Dynasty, not the 21st century. In this era, if one cannot possess strong enough strength, even if they become emperor, what can they do? God knows one day, if there is any natural or man-made disaster. With ancient technology and medical level. That's true, there's a possibility that it might just hang up. Moreover, even if it is Wang Tu's hegemonic career, fame and fortune, in the face of so-called time, it will only become empty. Decades or even centuries of glory and wealth, as well as the status of a country, are similar to the fleeting life and death of time. It cannot last forever, everything is empty. If we could open up a world of immortality and chivalry, or a fantasy world, wouldn't there be a chance to become an immortal and become our ancestor? A grain of dust can fill the vast sea. A blade of grass can chop the stars. Immortal life, longevity is on par with heaven. Such temptation is not the satisfaction that becoming an emperor can bring. Strong strength always brings a sense of security to people. Especially for a man who is ambitious, constantly becoming stronger and pursuing strength seems to be innate. Besides, even if we set aside the subsequent choices, just talking about initial acquisition is enough. You know, that's the ultimate power of Li Yuanba's 4 symbols in Tang Dynasty. In The Complete Biography of Tang Dynasty Romance, Li Yuanba is the great golden-winged bird of the upper realm, with boundless power and invincibility. With the power of the 4 symbols, among the heroes of the Sui and Tang dynasties, he was invincible in all competitions, and almost no one could walk 2 rounds in front of Li Yuanba's horse. In classical novels, the power of an elephant is 1,250 pounds. The power of the 4 symbols is equivalent to over 50,000 kilograms. In the Battle of Siming Mountain, Li Yuanba alone defeated an army of 2.3 million anti-kings from 18 routes. The Battle of Zijin Mountain directly killed Yuan Chengdu, the world's #1 city. A horse faced an army of 1.85 million with 2 hammers. 2 iron hammers were like swatting flies, only killing the mountains and seas of corpses, killing 1.85 million troops and leaving only 650,000 super fierce men. It's not an exaggeration to say. In Shuo Tang, Li Yuanba is a bug-level super perpetual motion machine. There is almost no energy consumption. Unlike Yuan Chengdu, which ranks second. After a large amount of energy consumption, with 1 enemy and 3 Xiong Kuai, Wu Yunzhao, and Wu Tianxi, he still cannot resist Pei Yuanqing who ranks behind him. However, Li Yuanba was able to defeat all the generals and a series of small soldiers who rebelled against the king in the 18 rout with just a horse and a hammer, making them bow down and submit to the powerful. Damn it! If I could gain the 4 symbols of Li Yuanba and add LV Bu's own martial arts skills. Looking at the entire 3 kingdoms, who can stop me? That's not true, it could really become the 3 kingdoms' unparalleled, lawn-mowing game. At the thought of this, Lu Bu's breathing instinctively became a bit rapid. So, what else does he need to worry about? Taking a few deep breaths, Lu Bu suppressed his inner excitement. Silently recite. I choose the brave martial arts chapter. Boom. With an unknown roar. Lu Bu's body was also in an instant, as if it was attached to flames. Cells, they just boiled up. This feeling. Liu Bu's scalp was tingling, and he suddenly felt his nerves and muscles, which excited him uncontrollably. At this moment, the blood inside the body seemed to boil and burn. Buzz. The sweat all over my body is like steel needles, prickling every root. It seemed that he had caught something appearing between heaven and earth, and his entire body suddenly rose with an indescribable charm. In the next moment, Lu Bu felt as if his body had suddenly become much heavier. Yes, that's right. It's not that it's lighter, but it feels heavier. As if my body had suddenly transformed from an iron pipe into an increasingly heavy solid cold steel. Heavier. It's also harder. The kind of bang-bang hard. Inside his body, there is a surging power. This kind of change is macro level. It is also very subtle. Very obvious. Even if it's just a simple lifting of your arms, you can clearly feel that you can easily carry the weight. Boom. Liu Bu suddenly burst out with a terrifying aura that seemed like a god and a demon. In this situation, he suddenly fell into a wonderful state, as if he had received some kind of affirmation in the dark. A powerful burst of life essence erupted from top to bottom throughout the body. Liu Bu's whole body seemed to transform into an oven burning, becoming increasingly prosperous. A great momentum was bestowed upon him. Straightened waist and spine, scattered hair, casually draped over the chest, rising with the wind, automatic without wind. Liu Bu slightly raised his head. In his already heroic temperament, there was a sudden addition of an indescribable demonic and domineering feeling. Dancing wildly with black hair and muscles all over, as if covered in a faint golden radiance at this moment. The antique bronze skin reflects the ultimate courage. The perfect muscular three-dimensional sensation has achieved a golden ratio in every aspect. A strong physique, just looking at it, gives people an illusion of perfection. Is this the power of the four symbols? Liu Bu felt the vigorous vitality emanating from his body, becoming stronger and stronger. I just feel that there is explosive power gathering inside my body. At this moment, he became even stronger. Transforming again, reaching new heights. With every move and gesture, a terrifying power can burst forth, as if sublimated. At this moment, he knew clearly. What kind of transformation has happened to oneself just now can be described as earth-shattering. Try the power. A brilliant light burst out from Liu Bu's eyes. At the next moment, a punch was thrown out. Puzzy. Surprisingly, the sound of thunder from tigers and leopards sounded. The air around the area where the fist grazed instantly disappeared. This force cannot be obtained by manpower. Now, he appeared in front of Liu Bu in a grand manner. For all of it. What else are you saying? What else do we need to say? Liu Bu took a deep breath, feeling the surge in his chest and realizing the grand and domineering momentum, as if standing on the tide of the times. Rolling forward, nothing can stop, nothing cannot be broken. The one who blocks will break, and the one who hits will be subdued. The grand royal way is respected by all. This is the feeling of imposing great power on oneself. My fate is up to me, not by heaven. Anyway, if anyone dares to endanger my life, I will block and kill the gods, the Buddha will block and destroy the Buddha, and cut off all enemies in the world. With a sigh of relief, Liu Bu squinted his eyes and spoke in a low voice. This is an oath. It is also an invisible expansion after suddenly gaining power beyond oneself. Liu Bu's fists clenched tightly together, making a creaking sound. Upon reflection, he couldn't help but start to swell. It seems that as long as one can hold the Fang Tianhua halberd and ride a warhorse, there is a sense of invincibility in the world, and the confidence to let it gallop naturally arises. He, Lv Fengxian, is going to be invincible. Chapter 3. The Pig at the Wind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hoo. The cold wind blows, and the leaves from afar sway and rustle with the wind. The wind with a hint of coolness finally dispelled the fanaticism in Liu Bu's mind. People tend to have some illusions about their own evaluation due to brief and rapid expansion. This is human nature. Even the most rational person cannot escape. However, the difference between wise and intellectually disabled lies in how to quickly regain rationality after inflation. It is obvious that Liu Bu, at least today's Liu Bu, is not a muscular brain with well-developed limbs and a simple and wise mind. So, he did not always fall deeply into the idea of the second of heaven and earth, the third of the travelers who obtained the golden finger. Being complacent is only a fleeting moment. Quickly, Lu Bu had already adjusted his mentality and secretly warned himself not to become blindly arrogant and complacent just because he had gained the power given by the golden finger. Of course, after feeling the ultimate combat power within the body for a long time, Lu Bu, who gradually calmed down from the feeling of being invincible and extremely passionate, couldn't help but sigh for it. No wonder those with strong military might are usually not accustomed to using their brains. Rather than putting in a lot of effort to meticulously conceive, the feeling of being forceful and pushing horizontally is even more overwhelming. After all, the feeling of being empowered by various great powers is the true pursuit. He can confirm that now, with the blessing of the four symbols, he is too powerful to say. At least on the local battlefield, he can use the ultimate combat power to crush all obstacles ahead. Satisfied. I'm really satisfied. This ability can be said to be powerful. Although, it may not be as good as those invincible systems, which start with a one-shot full level of 999 in seconds. However, it can definitely be considered a very powerful golden finger. Now, this earth-shattering combat power is destined to be one of his biggest trumps in this world. Ha! In this way, I can be bolder and start planning further. Sharp eyes, heavy heart like iron. Calm down, Lu Bu still needs to face major decision-making points in life. At this point in time, the feudal lords have not yet united, and LV Bu is not willing to show his fangs too early. At least, it should be used when making a big splash. Even when showcasing muscles, it is important to take them by surprise and showcase them effectively when they are caught off guard. After all, once you have fame, there are many things that will be much harder to take action in secret. Looking at history, there are too many old sayings like, wood is beautiful in the forest, and the wind will destroy it. These are all wisdom experiences passed down from our ancestors. In movies or novels that I have watched in my past life, the protagonist's aura is present, and no matter what difficulties I face, I can turn bad luck into good and kill the gods. If you think rationally, you will know that it is not realistic. Liu Bu doesn't know if a true warrior can truly be fearless. But he can be certain that true mental disabilities are fearless. The biggest difference between humans and beasts is people are smarter. The fighting ability of lions and tigers is 10 times stronger and more ferocious than that of humans, but in the end, only the former will be placed on the dining table and confined in a cage to receive guidance. Only by making the most valuable presentation at the most critical moment can it fit the calculations of adults. Moreover, the current situation in the Han Dynasty is still somewhat mysterious and eerie. Soldiers are important matters of the country, places of death and life, and ways of survival and death, which cannot be ignored. No dynasty would claim to be invincible by being able to fight. Eunuchs, aristocratic families, imperial power. The three major forces have gathered all the largest forces in the world. It is also the object that needs to be measured the most. When Dong Zhuo gained power, he was able to maneuver freely. What was the result? How does a wise person comment on him? Dong Zhuo is unruly, even more so than Jie Zhou. The whole world complains about him. Although he has strong military resources, he is truly an ordinary person. Now I will directly assassinate him to thank the people, and then according to the food and letters, I will assist the king's orders to command the world. This is also the act of Huan. So strong Dong Zhuo, isn't he also trapped in the surging undercurrent? Once assassinated, he occupied the 2 checkpoints of food and letter, preventing the strong soldiers of Dong Zhuo's group from entering Chang'an. With the so-called imperial decree, he commanded the world, and the people of Dong Zhuo's group collapsed on their own. With the decline of imperial power, the restless aristocratic families began to stir up trouble. Dandelions are not prominent until they mature, and there are no fluffy seed balls. When the sowing season arrives, the seeds mature and drift in the wind, starting a new cycle. And once it erupts, it's completely unclear where new dandelions will grow from. The family, which has been deeply rooted and laid out for many years, is currently in the stage of spreading dandelion seeds everywhere. Only fools will believe that Wang Ho, Jiang Xiangning has the guts. Only a few truly outstanding individuals who start from scratch at the grassroots level can achieve a good ending. Even if LV Bu, who has become stronger now, could only maintain his own courage in martial arts, at most he could only achieve fixed steps and self-protection. Besides, nothing can be done. Because in this era, only those who win the hearts of the people can gain the world. And once one accepts the deviation from the family, it can almost be equivalent to automatically moving towards the deviation of the people's hearts. This is not just sensationalism and unfounded worries. The terrifying influence of aristocratic families and clans was so exaggerated in ancient times. They claim to be the true controllers hidden outside of historical texts. They consider themselves a transcendent existence above the people and imperial power. Looking at history, one can find that there have been super-aristocratic families that have undergone several dynastic changes and have always stood firm. So, there is a saying among the people that, 100-year dynasty, 1,000-year family. To break through this invisible cage that quietly falls into the trap of honey weaving, one must learn to borrow a knife to kill. Borrow someone else's sword and kill people from noble families. With the power of Dongjua, break the pattern of aristocratic families. Otherwise, let alone the likes of Dongjua and Lu Bu. That's Wei Wu Chao. Despite being surrounded by Yenzhou, Cao Cao suffered a lot from the chaos of border concessions, almost becoming a homeless dog. In the end, he had to choose to compromise with the aristocratic family. The Three Kingdoms of Nuoda. Several companies fought for decades, but in the end, the world fell to Jin. It already explains the problem very well. Or, to put it another way, any dynastic change is essentially a matter of some nobles switching to become emperors. For example, the northern Zhou, Sui, and Tang dynasties were like this, and the alternation of these dynasties was actually a power change among the aristocrats of Guanlong. So, even in the late Sui dynasty, all over the world were anti-kings, and Wagong village was even more outstanding. However, in the end, it was Li Tang who gained the world. The main reason for the death of Sui. Isn't it that Yang Guang has always wanted to suppress the power of aristocratic families, but failed to grasp a certain degree, resulting in accidentally taking too many steps and causing the tragedy of the world falling apart? The imperial examination system was vigorously promoted during the Yang Guang dynasty, which to some extent blocked the opportunity for aristocratic families to control the court. Once a family loses power, it is equivalent to losing the right to survive. So, at that time, they began planning for a dynasty change. There are many smart people in the world. And these smart people, like those who think they are smart, often have some high self-esteem and see the world as small as possible. As a person of 2 generations, Lu Bu is well aware of this truth. After all, the martial arts world is not about fighting and killing, but about human relationships and worldly wisdom. In history, Lu Bu became famous in the Battle of Hulao Pass. Proud of many generals. Make the heroes of the world dare not confront them. Holding power and fame, reaching the pinnacle of life. From then on, it became synonymous with the ceiling of Han Dynasty generals in later commentaries. But after that, Lu Bu has become accustomed to using his strength to solve all problems, and his aloof personality traits have also begun to be exposed. After a brief peak, Lu Bu began to drift with the flow. I have traversed the Central Plains for several years, but have encountered obstacles everywhere. I finally got a shujo, but it caused everyone to betray and become estranged, and in the end, I lost my soul in the White Gate Tower. Nowadays, although Lu Bu's strength has become stronger, he also needs to worry a lot. It's impossible. Just kill anyone you see, right? Kill 1 or 2, kill 12,000, can we still destroy the world? Not to mention the power of one of the 4 symbols, even adding 10 Li Yuanba is not enough. Some people may not be able to defeat their opponents in the face. The conspiratorial tactics behind the scenes are truly beyond defense. These concerns and considerations. It's not that Lu Bu is self-deprecating, but rather a clear understanding. Those brick masters who keep clamoring all day, saying that modern people can beat the wisdom of ancient people, are all nonsense. If they really want to go to ancient times, they don't even know how to hang. So, only by taking a different path. The aristocratic family can use Dongzhuo's hand to weaken the power of the court's aristocratic family, so that I can better eliminate the noise. Lu Bu extended his 2 hands and then fiercely grasped the air. This is not about sacrificing the essence for the end, but rather a decision made after recognizing the facts. Just like, taking a certain virus as an example. Those sudden outbreaks of viruses, although frightening, can immediately attract human attention, invest a lot of energy in resources, and exert targeted restraint. On the contrary, it is those latent viruses that are not easily detected. Because even if discovered, it will not cause too much panic and will be conquered at all costs. This is because a sudden outbreak of a virulent virus can have a greater impact in the short term. However, the subsequent impact of this is uncontrollable and is likely to cause a fierce rebound. In fact, the most successful viruses are not those virulent viruses. But it is a latent virus, and it is precisely because of its concealment that it can spread better. Borrowing chickens to lay eggs is the key to development. With the help of Dongzhuo, he pushed the tide and conspired secretly. After Dongzhuo cleans up his family, he will come forward and become the biggest winner. Isn't there a sentence like that? Tell Tianyu not to take it, but to take its blame. This is a time of water and fish in the wilderness. Raising chickens to lay eggs or borrowing chickens to lay eggs has always been a multiple-choice question, and Lu Bu wants both. Wait for the wind and clouds to rise, just as the dragon is soaring. Encountering turbulent times and meeting them. How could he go and be the pig man in the wind? Chapter 4. Reentry into military camps. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dinner, Lu Bu rode his warhorse and left the mansion alone. His purpose is very clear. It's just heading straight to the military camp stationed in the suburbs. However, this time he did not intend to convene a military conference. It's not about gathering generals in the army. But rather, to confirm something. Or rather, he wants to gather some troops and manpower. In fact, within the Bingzhou army, there is also a mix of good and bad, with numerous mountains and peaks. Especially in this turbulent and special period, this is even more so. Because when Ding Yuan first took over Bingzhou, the situation was already somewhat special. Ding Yuan was parachuted to Bingzhou. To put it nicely, being promoted due to merit. In fact, it was only because Zhang Yi, the former governor of Bingzhou, was defeated and killed in resisting the attack of the Hu people, that he was urgently brought over by the imperial court to take over. Except for 2 or 3 legitimate generals, he convened military commanders in each battle to jointly discuss countermeasures and combat arrangements. Although Lv Bu has replaced Ding Yuan, those soldiers and horses from Bingzhou are also willing to continue following Lu Bu and regard him as the leader of the army. However, within the Bingzhou army, it seems like they are all a mountain. The generals who have mastered their respective troops and horses generally do not communicate with each other and report their respective troops and horses. And the reason why these people gathered under the command of Lu Bu was also due to the situation, as people from Bingzhou huddled together to keep warm. In fact, even the rough guys have a clear understanding in their hearts. In the current city of Luoyang, the power of the Western Liang army is already strong. They are allied with the state army and may face the risk of being annexed by the other party at any time. In this situation, there must be a leading wolf. Command and gather their many forces for self-protection. Looking at the Bingzhou camp in Noada, apart from LV-Bu, there were no other people who could willingly follow the dispatch. Even the previous Ding Yuan couldn't do it. The military and horses of Bingzhou also believe in the supremacy of power. What are the thoughts of these people about Lu Bu? I'm afraid even they can't say it themselves. So, Lu Bu is also the same, and there cannot be an accurate judgment on the situation of these people. However, there is only one person among them. Liu Bu has been a person of 2 generations, and he can be confirmed and assured. It can even be said that the reason why he rode alone into the camp this time was because he came specifically to find the opponent. A qualified leader will definitely hire people. As the saying goes, it is difficult for a general to fight a battle without soldiers. Even if LV Bukong has all the skills, if he really wants to make a difference, he still needs people and weapons. After all, even if he kills indiscriminately alone, the territory that has been conquered also needs to be guarded by manpower, doesn't it? To unlock the next world, one must complete the unification of this world. In times of chaos, food and people are the key. Since I have arrived here, I have made a decision. So, Lu Bu also needs to make plans. At least we can't just eat and wait to die. In this way, prioritizing the collection of a group of strong and exclusive troops is the top priority for Lu Bu. After all, pacifying the world is not something that can be done with just words. Apart from being able to fight on their own, one of the necessary conditions is to have a strong and capable army under his command. If you don't expect it to get worse and worse, it will eventually be gradually eradicated and repeat the same mistake. Even if there is a glimmer of growth, it is necessary to have a broad human resource base. Only with people can there be a source of troops. Only with troops and horses can we continue to fight. It's also good for the upcoming feudal lords to attack. It's not a long journey to pacify the world. Let Liu Bu feel the peaceful mindset that originally belonged to later generations. Many of them have already undergone rapid changes due to immense pressure. Time waits for no one. Not only about concerns about the upcoming chaos of feudal warfare. It is also necessary to ensure that there may be any probing or weakening from Dongzhuo's side at any time. On the side of the bed, how can others snore and sleep? The bravery of Liu Bu, coupled with the strength of the troops and horses in Bingzhou, is enough to make Dongzhuo miss him. So, this is also why in history, after Liu Bu joined Dongzhuo, although he was also highly valued, he lost his command over the Bingzhou army as a result. It wasn't until Dongzhuo was stabbed to death that he finally regained some of his troops and horses. Because Dongzhuo could not have allowed Lu Bu to hold so much military power and stay by his side. Not to mention that Lu Bu himself was instigated to defect. How could Dongzhuo truly achieve undefended trust? So, if nothing unexpected happens, Dongzhuo will also try his best to divide the Bingzhou troops and horses held by LV Bu. It may be a reward from high officials and generous salaries. It may also be the division of military power and personnel. These treatments will only come one after another. In fact, there are only over 10,000 true elites in the Bingzhou army today. The rest of the troops were mostly newly recruited soldiers who were temporarily recruited from Hanoi. Liu Bu only needs to master the essence of it. As for those newly recruited soldiers who are temporarily ineffective, it is acceptable to abandon them all. After all, it takes a considerable amount of time to train new recruits into the military. There is no need for Lu Bu to argue with Dongzhuo over these things. Moreover, he doesn't like those new recruits either. If it is truly necessary to enter the battlefield, the combat effectiveness of these new recruits cannot be compared to that of well-trained veterans. Not to mention, compared to those fierce soldiers who have truly seen blood, killed enemies, and experienced countless battles. Lu Bu still understands the principle that 1,000 sheep in sight are better than a sheep in hand. Many times, an elite team can play a crucial role, which is what he values more. Although he can still charge for everything now, he is a superior, not a nanny. If you have to do everything on your own, you'll be exhausted. Lu Bu is very familiar with driving warhorses. So his walking speed is also very fast. Not long after, I arrived at the military camp. Faced with Lu Bu's personal visit, the sentry at the entrance of the military camp dared not stop him. Directly open the door and release. Smooth and unobstructed all the way. Until Lu Bu rode his horse and turned into the military camp where Gao Shun was stationed, it was different. Chapter 5. Prototype of Formation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Stop. In the important area of the military camp, you are not allowed to ride on horseback. At the entrance of Gao Shun's camp, a sentry holding a long spear took a step forward and shouted loudly towards Lu Bu, who was riding on horseback. Look at the other person's style. Whenever someone from the opposite side continues to gallop forward, or if there is even a hint of misconduct, the soldier's spear will dance along and mercilessly take their life. Sigh. Liu Bu's pupils suddenly shrank, almost instinctively restraining his instinct to draw his sword and strike. The soldier in front of him saw the posture of Lu Bu riding his horse. Although he did not recognize Lu Bu due to the darkness, he also guessed in his heart that he should be a general-level figure. However, they still remained unmoved by the orders and prohibitions, instead showing a serious and guarded expression. The palm instinctively grasped the long spear. A posture of being ready to intervene at any time, even if risking one's life. Faced with such soldiers, Liu Bu naturally wouldn't do anything. In a fit of anger, he would jump on his horse and kill someone, and then recklessly break into the camp through a bloody and obscene operation. Please, this is his own camp, okay? Not only that. On the contrary, Lu Bu also felt quite relieved. Only such an elite and strong army is worthy, let him personally set off for a special trip. A strong army is a strong army. Strict military discipline is definitely one of the primary reference conditions. At this point, the commander in charge of guarding the camp had already recognized Lu Bu. Unconsciously, Shi Chang was about to give a big bow to the person in front of him, but he was grabbed by Liu Bu, who was quick-witted, and his arm was about to sink. Hardly pulled up the soon-to-be defeated Shi Chang. Having met the general, we have been ordered to impose martial law. Now that the camp is closed, please wait a moment for us to report. The leader, Shi Chang, looked at Liu Bu with even more respect. However, just like the sentinel, he persisted in his duties and spoke calmly. These soldiers and horses were nominally part of the army of the Han Dynasty, so they have not yet reached the level of addressing the Lord. Let's go. Lu Bu gestured for them to report. I flipped over and dismounted, waiting quietly while looking around and looking around. A glimpse reveals the whole leopard. It is self-evident how strong the execution ability of soldiers who strictly follow the orders of the main general and carry out such prohibitions is. Moreover, nowadays, Liu Bu can clearly feel the sense of solemnity emanating from these soldiers. These people are absolutely elite teachers. Such troops and horses are the elite that he can trust in the future. Great. Very good. Nowadays, Lu Bu is increasingly satisfied with the resources left by his original body. General. Gao Shun over there, after being notified by the sentinels, quickly rushed over. As he walked quickly, the armor on his body even made a clattering sound. General, I ordered the military camp to be under martial law today. Obviously, Gao Shun was also aware of Lu Bu's violent temper and worried that he would choose to vent his anger on the soldiers under his command. So, after rushing over, the first thing I did was to punch Lu Bu directly and explain. It's okay, Boda. You're skilled in training soldiers, I'm not even happy yet. It is evident that Gao Shun is nervous. Liu Bu couldn't help but feel a bit overwhelmed and quickly waved his hand. They are also respectful of their duties and responsibilities. How could they need to be further condemned? They deserve a reward. Thank you, General. Gao Shun, also known as Boda. A person who is pure and dignified, does not drink alcohol, and does not receive rewards. Previously, Gao Shun often advised Lu Bu, saying, those who break down their country are not because they lack loyal and wise subordinates, but because they are worried that they will not be valued. Generals do things without careful consideration, and they often make mistakes in their words and actions. Can mistakes happen again and again? So, even though the original LV Bu always knew that Gao Shun was loyal to himself, he did not reuse Gao Shun. But now Lu Bu has changed people. For this loyal and willing general who is willing to follow himself to the underworld in front of the White Gate Tower, LV Buna is extremely greedy. After all, loyalty and righteousness seem easy. How many people can possibly do it? Who doesn't want their subordinates or brothers and friends to be like this? Who wouldn't want to have a subordinate who understands things, knows the importance, and is capable? Loyalty and endurance. Having these two elements, Gao Shun is undoubtedly the most capable general under his command. What? You said Zhang Liao is also fierce. That's right, Zhang Liao is indeed a fierce general. But please, they are not yet his subordinates. At the first moment after becoming LV Bu, he had a specialized list of integrated generals under his command. I don't know if I don't check. I only understood after checking. Zhang Liao, who had habitual thinking in later generations, did not work with Lu Bu at this time. The other party originally belonged to the state of Dingyuan. However, before Dingyuan entered the capital, he ordered Zhang Liao to go to Luoyang to rely on He Jin. So, when He Jin summoned the outer town, he also ordered Zhang Liao and others to recruit soldiers locally. By the time Zhang Liao returned to Luoyang again, the court had already been controlled by Dongzhuo. Strictly speaking, the official establishment of Zhang Liao is still under the command of Dongzhuo. At present, the top talent under Lu Bu's leadership belongs to Gao Shun. How to prevent people from liking and appreciating someone who is capable and loyal? Lu Bu, who was increasingly satisfied with Gao Shunyu, enthusiastically supported Gao Shun's arm and entered the camp. General, are you here to discuss something important? Gao Shun walked straight up and down, sat down in the camp, and then asked without hesitation. He, I came here just for Boda. Lu Bu smiled slightly. Me. Gao Shun was a bit confused. Previously, Lu Bu preferred the Bingzhou wolf cavalry and didn't actually care about infantry in the army. Just because he is a fellow villager of Lu Bu, he is allowed to prioritize selecting strong soldiers and train them as exclusive infantry. So, Gao Shun never expected that LV Bu would come over to train him. Nowadays, our troops and horses in Bingzhou are under the supervision of others. Too many troops and horses can easily cause misunderstandings. Moreover, the consumption of money and food is also a problem, so I may give up on the new recruits gathered in Hanoi in the future. But as the military strength decreases, the military might cannot weaken. I plan to promote a strong and elite general. This army must all be elite in 100 battles, so in my plan, it must be well-equipped and well-equipped, and the supply of silver will begin to double to distinguish it from the surrounding army. Nowadays, seeing the well-trained and strong soldiers under Boda's command, such a heavy responsibility, it can be said that Boda is indispensable. Liu Bu spoke very seriously. At this moment, his eyes were burning with flames, staring straight into the heart. For Gao Shun's military training ability, he naturally couldn't rest assured. Those who strike will be defeated, while those who strike will be subdued. This slogan is not just a casual remark. That was under the command of Lu Bu in his past life, who could be called an absolutely elite trapped camp. As a direct subordinate of Gao Shun, there were over 700 people, known as 1,000 people. The armor and weapons are all refined and well-organized, strictly adhering to military discipline and military equipment, and they show considerable bravery during combat. Conquering everything is invincible. Even throughout the entire Eastern Han and Three Kingdoms period, they belonged to the top elite group of troops. Nowadays, although the trapped camp has not yet emerged, it is obvious that the embryonic form has been established. So, what else are you saying? Let Gao Shun quickly make it out of a mess. Nowadays, Lu Bu is not as short-sighted as his original self. I don't know, do generals have any requirements for constructing this army? Gao Shun asked rigorously and seriously. Request. My only request is to have the best. I will give orders, and soldiers in the army can be freely selected by Boda. Soldiers are expensive and not many are precious. As long as Boda likes them, he will let them go. Lu Bu waved his hand. He doesn't know how to train the elite soldiers of this era. So I won't interfere with Gao Shun, a skilled military trainer. Direct delegation of power. As long as the other party needs it, make any requests. As long as it's not too excessive, everything can be satisfied. Even if this process requires a large amount of gold, silver, and jewelry from LV Bu, as long as we can create that invincible camp, it will not be a loss. 1,000 pieces of gold are easy to obtain, but a single army is hard to find. No. Gao Shun's eyes flickered with a hint of excitement. At this time, although Lu Bu was somewhat abnormal, he had an intimidating temperament that made people feel uneasy. Forming an elite and fierce army is Lu Bu's trust in Gao Boda. A scholar dies for his confidant. Gao Shun immediately clenched his fists and looked solemnly at LV Bu's eyes, pausing word by word, saying, I will definitely live up to the general's trust. Chapter 6. A Knife in the Hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dealing with Gao Shun's side, LV Bu was able to breathe a sigh of relief. After all, no matter what, Gao Shun can be considered the strongest general that LV Bu can conquer at present. The ancient saying, 1,000 soldiers are easy to obtain, but one general is hard to find, is not unfounded. Especially those strong generals who can train elite soldiers are rare treasures. The elite soldiers trained in the opponent's hands are also of first-class strength. Gao Shun himself is a representative figure who, for the sake of fame and fortune, is determined to follow. Once one can gain the recognition of such people, it can truly be loyalty and perseverance, never giving up until death. In this way, LV Bu has also arranged for his future most loyal and reliable elite lineage. Of course, this is what Lu Bu thinks in his heart. But they didn't show too much favoritism towards each other. Since his people have already arrived at the military camp. On the side of Bingzhou Wolf Rider, it is also necessary to win over people's hearts. Compared to the camp that has not yet been formed. At present, it is only considered as the future elite of Lu Bu's humerus. Bingzhou Wolf Cavalry is a ready-to-use combat power. Speaking without exaggeration. The Bingzhou Wolf Rider is currently the sharpest Bingzhou Wolf blade in Lu Bu's hand. Sharp edges are exposed. Invincible. With such a sharp wolf knife in hand. Looking at the world today. Lu Bu is enough to say that he can temporarily manipulate one side. There is no exaggeration at all. Because, as a super cavalry that can rival the Shiliang Iron Cavalry. 8,000 wolf riders from Bingzhou. He is undoubtedly the absolute mainstay of the Bingzhou army. Field combat ability can be said to be a masterpiece in the world. This is also the Bingzhou army, which can have an advantage in military strength compared to Dongzhuo's army. But it is still one of the reasons why the opponent lost their armor in the previous confrontation. The reason why Ding Yuan was able to rely on and dared to compete with Dongzhuo in the case. It's the bravery of Lu Bu, plus the advantage of Bingzhou Wolf Cavalry. However, the Bingzhou Wolf Rider was originally cultivated by LV Bu. Most of the legitimate generals inside also followed Lu Bu, starting from Zhouyuan and fighting hard all the way to start their careers. It can be said that among the middle and senior generals in the Bingzhou army, no one dares to claim that they have not received the favor of Lu Bu on the battlefield. Lu Bu saved countless people on the battlefield outside Bingzhou. So, for Lu Bu, these people have a natural supportive attitude. Therefore, although the incident of LV Bu's rebellion against Ding Yuan seems somewhat absurd, but the generals of Bingzhou, seeing that the situation had reached this point, were still quite convinced and chose to support Lu Bu. It was easy to calm the hearts of Lu Bu today. With such a step, one rider wields two elite powers. Lu Bu's confidence in his heart has also become increasingly profound. Plus the power of the four symbols that one possesses. Now he can face Dong Zhuo's next move with even more composure. In fact, it was just as Lu Bu had anticipated. For the Bingzhou soldiers and horses stationed near Luoyang, with a quantity of over 20,000. On Dong Zhuo's side, he naturally wouldn't turn a blind eye. Even if the current leader of the Bingzhou army, LV Bu, has nominally surrendered to Dong Zhuo, it is the same. The proposal of the Western Yang strategists led by Li Ru to divide and transform the troops in Bingzhou was quickly presented to Dong Zhuo. As a result, the follow-up work for the Bingzhou system began in full swing and quietly. Of course, it has to be said that Lu Bu, as a super general at the level of an emperor superstar, still has a very good reputation. Even if it was necessary to divide the troops under his command, Dong Zhuo would never directly escalate the conflict on the surface. Not only that, next, he will also reward LV Bu. The kind of big and special reward. Whether it's fame or fortune. Dong Zhuo will make LV Bu have a very satisfactory harvest. The purpose of doing this is not just to appease Lu Bu. Similarly, it is also buying horse bones for thousands of dollars. It is precisely to start with Lu Bu and establish a benchmark for setting a typical example. To demonstrate Dong Zhuo's love for talent. Although it is well known that relying solely on fame and fortune may not truly win a person's heart. However, this is a manifestation of emphasis. It is also a means that the upper authorities must take to win over the lower ones. Even if it's just a show performance for others to watch. As long as it works, that's enough. Moreover, Lu Bu is indeed a super powerhouse. They held strong Bingzhou soldiers and horses in their hands. No matter how hard you try to win over, it's not too much. After all, this LV Bu is a super general that Dong Zhuo has been eagerly anticipating. It is undeniable that Dong Zhuo's generosity towards his soldiers is evident to all. Otherwise, how could he have received the service of the soldiers of the three armies? As for speaking, Lu Bu may have a bit of a temper that is difficult to handle easily. It's okay, it's okay. It is said that people with skills are always difficult to serve. As long as the other party has the ability and genuine abilities. Isn't it normal for someone to have a slightly arrogant aura? Even though Lu Bu's rebellious and unruly personality gave Dong Zhuo some headaches. In his heart, he also had a great fondness for Lu Bu's bravery. Originally, as Dong Zhuo, who had been leading troops for years in combat, he had never seen any proud soldiers or fierce generals. He, who started in Xiliang, has seen many fierce generals. In this lifetime, I have encountered countless so-called fierce generals. However, the battle with Ding Yuan in the suburbs left the deepest impression on him. Because the reason why the boat almost capsized in the sewer was that LV Bu, who was still under the control of the old man Ding Yuan at that time, led the Bingzhou wolf cavalry and led the way, one person and one halberd like entering an uninhabited territory. He killed his Xiliang iron cavalry hard, but they all returned after a great defeat. At that time, Dong Zhuo had already remembered Lu Bu's outstanding performance in his heart. Moreover, Dong Zhuo is still seeking help from others. It's even more necessary to give it a good expression. At this critical moment, it was necessary to appease LV Bu, and Dong Zhuo did not want to obstruct some nominal small matters, adding to LV Bu's resentment. Dong Zhuo's heart has already been magnified a lot. As the saying goes, the bolder a person is, the greater the potential of the land. When a person's inner ambition is ignited, the things they want to acquire and possess will also increase even more. For today's Dongjua, is there anything more satisfying than being able to master more elite soldiers and strong generals? Is there anything else that can make him feel more excited than holding the world's mighty soldiers and the strongest generals? After all, you know, even the dragon bed. He had already slept a few days ago. After experiencing that kind of taboo-stimulating taste. Dongjua's bottom line has already been broken through. After getting more things that shouldn't be there. There are more things to have. So, he plans to start a big event in the city of Luoyang in Kyoto, Nova. Use the topic as a reference. On the one hand, it is to appease Lu Bu and the surrendered Luoyang generals, gather and divide the troops under their command for their own use. On the other hand, we can also take this opportunity to continue weighing the attitudes of those aristocratic families and high-ranking officials in the court. You should know that at the court meeting, Dongjua openly proposed the abolition of legislation. Taking Huoguangshi as an example, from the time of Bai Tianyanian, anyone who opposes will be immediately executed. In the civil and military affairs of the Manchu dynasty, there was only one Shangshu Liu Xie standing up to defend, and Dongjua was refuted to the point of being speechless, so angry that he stopped. Later, Dongjua wanted to find an opportunity to kill Liu Xie. However, they were dissuaded by Cai Yong, Peng Buchuan, and others. Even so, Liu Xie could only abandon his official position and flee. At that time, Dongjua was hesitant about going to court and, in addition to selling face to Cai Yong, only then did he let go of the old man Liu Xie. Now, Dong has already accomplished the task of deposing the emperor and establishing a new ruler to sleep on the dragon bed. What other concerns are there? If anyone dares to oppose it again, it will be a dead end. If you want to play, then play with a big one. This time, the first large-scale banquet under Dongjua's command since he joined Luoyang was specially held for this purpose. He not only wants to hold. We still need a grand and special event. The kind of commotion that everyone knows about, in order to showcase Dong Zhongying's unparalleled power now. Chapter 7. Banquet in Deyang, Big Chapter, recommended for collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It is worth mentioning that the place where Dongjua held the banquet this time is also very interesting. Because Dongjua, that guy, directly took the place where the civil and military officials went to court, and the Deyang Hall was used as the venue for the event. You know, that's the largest palace in the North Palace. It's not a big deal, don't open it lightly. In this way, Dongjua took this place to entertain the generals under his command. The meaning it contains becomes somewhat playful. Although Lu Bu is the nominal protagonist of this banquet. However, his heart is also very clear. On Dongjua's side, he probably wants to borrow questions to play something out. However, in this way, he doesn't have to worry, it might be some kind of hongmen banquet. Since Dongjua has chosen, he will have to go to great lengths to recruit him. I have submitted my application letter again. The other party also had no right to cut off their future arms, risking losing trust in the world and causing no one to dare to join later on. They inexplicably accused themselves of being eliminated. Not only that, if I guess correctly, I'm afraid the other party will probably have to put in a lot of effort to win him over. If it were sugar-coated bullets. Put away the sugar coating and block the shells. As for what Dongjua really wants to leverage the topic, he only needs to be indifferent and observe. With such a mindset, Lu Bu is actually much more relaxed and comfortable. So, with the idea of admiring the prosperity of ancient Kyoto, I looked around and began to stroll around. In the Han Dynasty, generally speaking, it was the Guanlu Sun who was in charge of guarding the palace gates. At each of the 12 city gates in Luoyang, there will be a gate attendant. A gatekeeper responsible for guarding various city gates, leading hundreds of soldiers. However, these troops stationed in the capital with halberds have already been taken in by Dongjua, so naturally they will not obstruct his people. Liu Bu is not in a hurry either. Even let the person leading the way slow down. He himself slowly appreciated the scenery along the way. It has to be said that the palace at this time is truly the palace. It's not a scene of small fights in those TV dramas of later generations. Splendid and colorful. It can no longer be expressed and described in ordinary language. As the ancients said, to attend a meeting at the third level is to mistake gold and silver on two pillars. Painting houses with red beams and jade steps and gold pillars. Carving threads is the best way to make a palace, and the toilet is made of green and green. Especially when Lu Buha officially entered the palace, he would find that pavilions were everywhere. In the distance, there is also a tall building standing in front of the door. The vermilion pillars stand tall and towering. The building is as steep as a mountain peak, and there are even faint white clouds swirling around it. The gate of the palace is also adorned with magnificent blue patterns. The porch in front of the hall is solemn and majestic. The corridor eaves, visible to the eye, are all adorned with fragrant and precious magnolias as the main rafters. Using elegantly textured apricot wood as beams and columns. The roof rafters are covered with gold foil. The facade is adorned with jade ornaments with various patterns. The various animals carved on it are equally beautiful and unique. Perfect decoration, combined with intricate carving techniques. The magnificent scene is enough to make those who enter for the first time feel a sense of shock, just like Lu Lao entering the Grand View Garden. Even Lv Bu was equally stunned and attracted attention. Even in later generations, to see such a scenic spot, one would have to spend a lot of money. Even some places are probably not open to the public. So, Lu Bu really appreciated it with a quick attitude of watching. After all, at this moment, he is the only one who understands. The grand palace in front of us, the magnificent imperial palace, will soon be set on fire and destroyed in an instant. Lu Bu is well aware of the predetermined history that should have happened. Dong Zhuo, that guy, couldn't withstand the pressure of the 18 rout marquises in the back, but he moved the capital skillfully. Hardly migrate all the population of Luoyang to Chang'an. Along the way, it is said that there was a scene of corpses lurking in the wild, which was truly unbearable. Even in the end, without stopping, this guy even set fire to Luoyang. The entire city was almost burned to the ground. At that time, the luxurious scene at this time will be completely gone. Continue into the deep palace. The scenery I saw also became even more majestic and majestic. The street is over 10 zhang wide. 1 main, 2 auxiliary, and 3 lanes can accommodate dozens of carriages in parallel. Outside the hall, there are solemn soldiers and horses. The guards in charge of guarding, each wearing armor and wielding sharpness, exude a majestic aura. A large number of servants and maidservants enter and exit along the steps, bringing in various dishes, dried fruit cakes, alcoholic beverages and juices, as well as beef and mutton, like assembly lines. Needless to say, these are all delicious foods that they can enjoy at their banquet later. The Han Dynasty was actually an era that emphasized the importance of etiquette and equality. What kind of place should correspond to what kind of characters and specifications? In ancient societies centered around national imperial power, the main achievements of culinary culture were often enjoyed by the upper echelons of society, and feasts were a concentrated reflection and embodiment of the characteristics of culinary culture. The types of official banquets during the Han Dynasty were also quite diverse. According to different hosting times, venues, and participants, different divisions can be made. According to the different participants and the nature of banquets, official banquets during the Han Dynasty are often divided into 3 categories. National banquets, joint banquets between monarchs and officials, and banquets between monarchs and the people. Using the Deyang Hall as a banquet venue, it is estimated that only emperors of the Han Dynasty were qualified to participate before this. And according to normal circumstances, As a vassal, Dongzhuo's actions do not conform to the etiquette system at all. Strictly speaking, it is under the pretext of committing a crime and being implicated in beheading. But now it's already this time. Of course, no one cares about this anymore. Since ancient times, if a ruler is strong, his subjects will be weak, and if a ruler is weak, his subjects will be strong. The current great Han emperors are all young emperors who have just been supported and ascended by Dongzhuo. So, there is no one who can intimidate Dongzhuo today. After expansion, Dongzhuo's imposing demeanor was simply lawless. However, Dongzhuo is indeed proud of himself. After all, after eliminating Ding Yuan, they gradually gathered the Shiyuan soldiers and horses that had originally stayed in the palace. In addition, he later transferred personnel from Liangzhou to Beijing. At this time, Dongzhuo could be said to have supported the army for over 100,000. Truly true, they have become the most powerful feudal lords in the world today. At this time, the strong army of the world. The top three border armies are undoubtedly Liangzhou, Bingzhou, and Yuzhou. Shilian Iron Cavalry. Bingzhou Wolf Rider. And, by Ma Yi Kong. In addition, there are Flying Bear Army and Danyang Army led by Sun Jian in terms of infantry. Nowadays, the Western Liang Army of Nuoda can be said to have been built incredibly strong by Dongzhuo. The main skeleton is the local hardcover soldiers of Xiliang, with the surrendered Chang and Hu people as auxiliary soldiers. Layer by layer, arranged step by step. A more unique aspect is Dongzhuo's special military management of the Western Liang Army. Every class of soldiers from the Western Liang Army. If he dies on the battlefield, he will be automatically promoted to a substitute by the next level of sergeant. In this way, it is actually fully insured. In the Western Liang Army, once a military order is issued, it can be strictly enforced and enforced. Has strong execution ability. It is precisely because of this that Dongzhuo highly values the Bingzhou troops who can fight against his Western Liang armies with a small number of troops without falling behind. It is also very urgent to completely grasp it in hand. After all, once this issue is resolved, Dongzhuo can quickly expand his own power to the maximum extent in the shortest possible time. At that time, holding the world's mighty soldiers and the emperor, lying in the middle of the pass, Dongzhuo said that he could truly become a powerful force. In fact, Dongzhuo had a real chance of success in history. By continuously weakening and embezzling hostile forces, one's own power rapidly expands. He only needs to be able to suppress the piled-up contradictions through one victory after another before they completely erupt, in order to exchange for living space. There will be no negative consequences of backfire. If everything goes smoothly, as long as Dongzhuo seizes the opportunity, he can divide and transform the forces opposing him from all over the world, and engage in close and distant attacks. Although it may not be possible, it can all be smoothed out. However, at least it should be able to take down the majority. At that time, the remaining edges and corners will be of no concern. However, Dongzhuo did not seize the opportunity. You should know that in the late Eastern Han Dynasty, it was already a time when imperial power was declining and feudal lords gradually began to have their own ulterior motives. Dongzhuo, who held the central control of the court, not only did not take the opportunity to win over and appease the feudal lords to stabilize his rule. On the contrary, time and time again, he gave various feudal lords a pretext to attack him. On the one hand, the practice of deposing the emperor has helped him establish his authority in a short period of time. But it also gave him a natural handle to be attacked. Of course, objectively speaking, this step cannot be completely said to have been taken wrong. Because Dongzhuo's goal, from the beginning, was to force Empress Dowager He to give up the imperial court. Moreover, achieving this step alone cannot completely eliminate its hidden dangers. Because the young Emperor Liu Bian, who took over the power of Empress Dowager He, was born to Empress Dowager He, if he were allowed to ascend to the throne, even after Empress Dowager He returned to power, he could still have an impact on the court through Liu Bian, making it difficult for Dong Zhuo to truly manipulate imperial power. More seriously, if Dong Zhuo kills Empress Dowager He will naturally form a deep hatred with Liu Bian. So, Dong Zhuo had to take precautions against Liu Bian, a potential enemy. Dong Zhuo's decision to abolish and establish the Empress Dowager was, in a sense, a legitimate act. That's also why later on, Yuan Shao wanted to establish Liu Yu as emperor, but was strongly opposed by Cao Cao. Even Dong Zhuo's political enemies did not seize any criticism or even subvert the legitimacy of Liu Xie. Dong Zhuo's fake hand, Empress Dowager He, deposed Shao Lixian, was successful in strategy. However, in order to win over the aristocratic family, a large number of feudal lords were enfeoffed and sent out, which was no different from an absolute stinky move. However, there is also the credit of those aristocratic families and clans involved, causing Dong Zhuo to stubbornly play a good hand poorly. In this way, it actually exposed a very big flaw that Dong Zhuo had. That's because the foundation is unstable. As long as it is, any slight mistake in the process towards ultimate success can lead to both internal and external troubles erupting simultaneously, and internal and external contradictions erupting together, causing one's own power to quickly collapse like melting ice and snow. In history, Dong Zhuo's forces quickly collapsed after such a mishap. Chapter 8. Heroes emerge from chaotic times. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Haha, my unparalleled tiger general has arrived. Outside the Deyang hall, Dong Zhuo's incredibly heroic laughter suddenly rang out. Then, under the gaze of some generals in the western Liang who had broken through their defenses, and even some resentment and jealousy, their lord Dong Zhuo stepped forward with a smile and welcomed Lv Bu, who had come to attend the banquet. At this moment, Dong Zhuo displayed a clear demeanor of, 1,000 soldiers are easy to obtain, but a general is hard to find. Not only did he personally step down the stairs, but he looked at Liu Bu in front of him with extremely hot eyes. Even to be frank, Liu Bu is his unparalleled tiger general. And, he's really not talking nonsense. I do think so in my heart. In Dong Zhuo's eyes, there was a strong and fiery desire flickering unabashed. This is a greedy desire. An extreme thirst for literary and military officials. Perhaps, this is a certain philatelic sentiment that every heroic figure will have after further possibilities arise. Just like the Wei Wu Chao in history, he loved talent as much as his life. I want the most intelligent civil servant. The strongest general. The most elite army. Speaking of which, Dong Zhuo was a fierce general of the Han Dynasty in Xiliang when he was young. Tiger-backed and bare-waist, brave and skilled in battle. However, as I grew older and entered Luoyang during this period, I began to take good care of myself and my body began to gain some weight. Even so, it is also fat and strong. In a sense, the states of Bingliang and Liangzhou, where Lv Bu and Dong Zhuo were located, were not only the main areas where the Chang invasion spread in the late Eastern Han Dynasty, but also the main battlefields of the Chang War. In the territory of Bingzhou, there were originally many Xiongnu people who migrated inward, but later a large number of Qianghu people flooded in. Xionghu and Han people have lived together for a long time. Therefore, Dong Zhuo and the generals of Liangzhou were accustomed to the barbarian wind. And the generals of Liu Bu's group in Bingzhou were also similar. Both of them are academically lacking. They were all famous for their bravery in the village. Initially, they all started as low-level military positions. It can be said that the early experiences were very similar. Dong Zhuo felt that Lv Bu had a similar taste to him, so it was not by chance. Looking at Liu Bu again, wearing a purple gold crown on his head and a pretty ribbon around his waist. The whole person exudes a rebellious and domineering aura. At this moment, he ascended the high platform from the jade path on the side of the Jimawan Hall. Dong Gong. With a bow to Dong Zhuo, the rebellious and domineering aura emanating from Lv Bu's body suddenly converged. At this time, the relationship between Dong Zhuo and Lvbu was still in the honeymoon period. Dong Zhuo still needs to rely on the military force of Lvbu to intimidate some so-called imperial factions in the court who are not willing to give up. So, now he looks at Lvbu that is pleasing to the eye. Previously, when Dong Zhuo was at war with Ding Yuan, no one under his command could defeat Lu Bu. He personally participated in the battle and even discovered that Lvbu was exceptionally brave and talented, making him a great general. In today's chaotic world where various forces are about to compete, it's not that the more honest and obedient a person is, the more they are valued. The behavior of simply flattering and licking the dog may make the superior feel comfortable. However, it can only be seen by true heroes as a lack of ambition and achievement. On the contrary, as long as one can demonstrate their strength and influence. Even for people who are unpredictable and have various personality flaws, others should hold their noses and speak up to attract them. Of course, there is no doubt that for any ambitious and capable lord, there is also a certain level of fear towards things that one cannot control. In this way, even though he was fond of Lu Bu's martial prowess, Dong Zhuo also had some fear in his heart. Especially, given that Lvbu himself is the killer who came to cast. Even when welcoming Lu Bu, a cautious expression flashed subconsciously in the corner of Dong Zhuo's eyes. However, on his face, there was no change in color and he still had a look of eager and ecstatic pursuit of talent. Afterwards, it really shows an appreciative attitude. That's also because he had already noticed Lu Bu's body in advance, and indeed had completely removed his weapon, which can be said to be empty. Only those who truly feel at ease dare to get close to them. Dong Zhuo, with a steel needle-like beard, had a trembling face and a rough and wild expression. At this moment, while excitedly supporting Lu Bu's arms, his mouth was constantly praising him. It is to express one's love. It is also to soothe the paralyzed heart of Lu Bu. After all, today's Lu Bu still directly commands the troops and horses of the Bingzhou army. Those Bingzhou armies were not directly under the control of Dong Zhuo. Under Dong Zhuo's command, he appeared somewhat detached. It can be said that for Dong Zhuo, Lvbu, who is personally brave and outstanding, is very important. Lu Bu, who was in charge of the Bingzhou army, was even more important to Dong Zhuo. Not only is it the only candidate he can use to balance the Xiliang faction under his command, it will be the strongest sword in his hand. Dong Zhuo is well aware that he is now the target of public criticism. A tall tree catches the wind, and a heavy ship makes it difficult to navigate. However, because the current court has just experienced turbulence. At this point in time, various forces, both overtly and covertly, are actually observing each other's positions and attitudes. Reshuffle and make new choices. They are also waiting for Dong Zhuo, who holds military power, to indicate their attitude and direction. As the saying goes, heroes emerge from chaotic times. This is not to say how noble those heroes are. In times of prosperity, one may hide in obscurity, but in times of chaos, one may run out to save the people. But it's because in times of chaos, there are top-notch forces with absolute strength. For example, the imperial court will gradually lose control over the entire pattern. So, to put it more plainly, the meaning of heroes emerge from chaotic times. Basically, it's like being easy to get into trouble in a chaotic world. For ordinary people, even if they don't remember, born in trouble, died in peace. I am not sure about these words. Shun was raised among the acres, Fu Shua was raised between the tablets and buildings, Jiaoge was raised among the fish and salt, Guan Wu was raised among the scholars, Sun Shuio was raised above the sea, and she was raised over 100 miles in the city. I always remember the famous saying, it's better to have seeds than to be a prince, a general, or a prime minister. The current Han Empire is like a broken ship sailing in the sea. In the storm that followed, she was tottering, tossing up and down in the turbulent and rapid rapids and waves. Give people a feeling that it is possible to completely collapse and sink into endless waves anytime, anywhere, in the next second. This period is undoubtedly very special. Because at this time, the army under Dong Zhuo's command was roughly composed of 4 parts. One is the Liangzhou soldiers and horses who followed him into the capital. The second is that the former troops of Dingyuan have now returned to the Bingzhou army of LV Bu. The third is the soldiers of the He Jin and He Miao brothers in the 2 mansions, General's Mansion and Cavalry General's Mansion. Finally, it was after entering the capital that troops were gradually recruited and replenished. Dong Zhuo's reputation and influence in Kansai cannot be compared to when he was in the Kanto region. After Dong Zhuo's entry into the country, his actions aroused the vigilance and disgust of the party members and intellectuals in Kyoto. After all, even though the purge movement carried out by party members and scholars in the late Han Dynasty expressed dissatisfaction with corrupt politics at that time, there were not many people who openly criticized the Eastern Han Emperor. Dong Zhuo, on the other hand, not only proposed that there was no difference in merit and virtue between the emperors below him, but also publicly demoted their temple names. Combined with the extraordinary act of abolishing the emperor and establishing a new one, it was directly regarded by party members and scholars as a sign of negating the imperial authority of the Eastern Han Dynasty, and even a precursor to the abolishment of Han and self-reliance. It can be said that since the abolition of the emperor, it has already meant that Dong Zhuo has officially stood on the opposite side of the so-called Qinglu. And those so-called party members and scholars, once they confirm that Dong Zhuo's usurpation is imminent, will quickly take action and join hands to defend the legitimacy of the Han Emperor and the state of the Han family. In this situation, conspiracies against Dong Zhuo also came one after another. That's also why in history, Dong Zhuo instinctively chose to relocate his capital to Chang'an when facing pressure from the various armies in the Kanto region. It is precisely because Dong Zhuo hopes to rely on Guanlong again and achieve the convergence with his former troops in Liangzhou, so that he can directly obtain troops from Guanzhong and even the local area of Liangzhou. So, during this period, Dong Zhuo was able to achieve tolerance without any ripples. I am also willing to be unconditionally generous. Even LV Bu can provide conditions for requesting permission. But after this period of time, the troops and horses in Lu Bu's hands will be the first to bear the brunt, making Dong Zhuo very sensitive. After all, no one can tolerate the presence of a sharp nail buried in their own yard. Lu Bu is equally aware of this. However, since the other party has not yet taken any action, LV Bu is not in a hurry. He just pretended not to know. Waiting to see what kind of play the other party can perform today. Chapter 9. The Collapse of Rites and Music. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fengxian, come on, join me in the banquet. Dong Zhuo eagerly grasped Lu Bu's arm and walked towards the hall. It has to be said that under the heroic and enthusiastic attitude displayed by Dong Zhuo at this time, it is indeed easy to make people feel good about it. Even LV Bu couldn't help but feel a sense of closeness in his heart. Of course, he also knew that Dong Zhuo was not a good person. Dong Zhuo dares to openly abolish and establish. Dare to force the Empress Dowager to return to politics, dare to coerce Emperor Xian to move the capital, dare to depose the title of Emperor Han, shake the foundation of the Eastern Han Dynasty, and start the first step in the process of representing Han. However, due to the inability to establish a long-term foothold in the Kanto region, it was not possible to transfer artifacts to one's own home and complete the second step of the process of replacing Han. Destined to be an unlucky person who wants to make wedding clothes for others. Originally, in time and space, he made the biggest wedding dress for Cao Cao. Cao Cao started his career by attacking Dong Zhuo, but in fact, he inherited Dong Zhuo's political legacy. During the reign of Dong Zhuo, all officials were in charge, commanding freedom. And the latter Cao Cao, on the other hand, said, after proclaiming himself as the capital, the power belongs to the Cao family, and the emperor is in charge, with only 100 officials and staff. It can be said that Dong Zhuo and Cao Cao both acted as prime ministers, holding the emperor hostage to command the feudal lords. However, Cao Cao was more capable. Even though he came from a humble family, he was able to navigate between party members and famous scholars, and established close relationships with Confucian aristocrats. He is proficient in military strategy and also pays attention to Confucianism. Governance emphasizes virtue and conduct, with the function of rewarding others, alternating and complementing each other. So, Cao Cao not only received support from non-Confucian Han ethnic groups. Moreover, it has received support from numerous Confucian aristocrats. His regime naturally has a broader social foundation than Dong Zhuo's regime. Moreover, Cao Cao's achievements in politics far surpassed those of Dong Zhuo. He established a new imperial power that was capable of deterring and controlling the north by utilizing the Han Emperor, who was still in his nominal position despite having no authority. This laid the foundation for the final Shenwei Dynasty to represent the Han Dynasty. In contrast, Dong Zhuo was born and raised in Liangzhou, and has not read much books. Although Han, he is more like a nomadic ethnic group in personality and is out of place with the culture of the Central Plains. And Dong Zhuo, a barbarian, dared to blackmail the emperor to order the feudal lords. Those scholars naturally hate him to the bone. Don't be fooled by the fact that Dong Zhuo is sweeping across the capital now, with a great potential to dominate Guangzhou. In fact, from the beginning, it was the result of indulgence from the aristocratic family. Perhaps there were indeed some loyal old ministers to the Han Dynasty. However, it was also a group of ministers with their own ulterior motives that led Dong Zhuo to gradually expand. Otherwise, most of the 8th colonel of Shiyuan in Luoyang, except for Jian Shuo, were from noble families. If we work together from the beginning, plus Ding Yuan's Bingzhou army, 3 forces stand in opposition. Luoyang is as stable as Mount Tai, at least it can restrict each other. Even those aristocratic families and clans did not expect Ding Yuan to lose so quickly, which caused Dong Zhuo's power to quickly expand to a point where they had no time to take action. However, even so, the literati under Dong Zhuo's command are obviously just a Li Ru who can be highly valued. In the dark, at most add a wise and secure Jia Su. As long as the aristocratic family does not provide talent and secretly creates obstacles, Dong Zhuo will definitely not be able to turn around the court of Nuada. Moreover, Dong Zhuo himself could no longer resist the corrosion of sugar-coated candies and began to settle for the status quo, gradually enjoying himself. A successful prince, a defeated bandit. Dong Zhuo has no hope of pacifying the world. So, no matter how sweet Dong Zhuo is, Lv cannot be with him. There is no future ahead. He wouldn't choose a hell start for himself. Everyone is seated. Dong Zhuo sits at the highest position. The official seat naturally has Li Ru as the first person on the right hand. In the ranks of generals, Dong Zhuo insisted on personally holding Lu Bu's wrist and, under the indignant gaze of the generals of the Western Liang, was sent to the first seat on the left. In the seemingly cheerful hall, everyone's mentality and thoughts are actually different. Especially, the generals of the Western Liang dynasty looked at Lu Bu, who had already taken the first place and sat calmly, full of envy and jealousy. Dong Zhuo used Lv to kill Ding Yuan, and now Lv has also surrendered to Dong Zhuo. However, the relationship between the factions in Bingzhou and Liangzhou is still very tense. The Liangzhou faction includes Li Ju, Guasi, Hu Zhen, Fan Si, Zhang Ji, and others, while the Bingzhou faction mainly consists of Lv, Zhang Liao, Li Su, and Yang Feng. Nowadays, the Liangzhou army regards itself as a winner, so it does not take the Bingzhou army seriously, even towards Lv. Dong Zhuo, who is now in power, is even more domineering than the once domineering General Liang Yi. The famous Mr. Zhou Shuren once said, "If you want to open a window, you have to lift the roof." So, those who initially did not agree to open the window, in order to not demolish the roof, can calmly accept the decision to open the window. Faced with the increasingly expanding Dongjua, the court ministers retreated and constantly compromised. Because at this stage, Dongjua is a decisive leader in killing and attacking. There were already several high-ranking officials in the court who were taken down on the spot just because of their confrontation with Dongjua, and they were dealt with just one click. Even the process of questioning and beheading after autumn is lacking. Chinese culture is vast and profound, spanning 5,000 years. Even in the late Eastern Han Dynasty, there are still many ongoing events that can be found as reference points in the history left behind by the past. Etiquette collapses and music spoils. At this time, the Eastern Han Dynasty group was like the last period of the Eastern Zhou Dynasty, and the feudal lords below were various states of various sizes. When the rules that maintain the order of a dynasty are destroyed, the consequences will inevitably be a loss of authority. The generals are domineering and the hearts of the people are treacherous. Wen Chen is weak and unaware of military affairs. But this is the chaotic world. When all the rituals and music crumble, any status is nothing but empty paper. Chaos has given space for the rampant growth of evil. Starting from the Yellow Turban Uprising, various chaos, like locusts, ravaged one place after another, creating groups of impoverished people with nothing. Perhaps some people have always remained steadfast in their beliefs and joined the official army to fight against bandits as they wished. But I don't know how many people will choose to take risks under the pressure of survival and become the group of people they once hated. For the Han Dynasty, this was a very decadent period, but similarly, it was also a time of heroes rising together and splendid and diverse. It has been proven that in such a chaotic world, in order to control one's own destiny, one must possess powerful power. Of course, Dongjua's reckless killing will inevitably result in a world of disloyalty. Once it backfires, it will be irreparable. However, he also has nothing to complain about. The road is one's own choice. The consequences, whether good or bad, are all to be borne by oneself. Lu Bu sat alone. There was already some discord between the old generals of the Western Liang clique under Dongjua's command and the newly arrived Bingzhou clique like him. Both sides also looked down on each other and couldn't even pee in the same pot. Lu Bu, after all, is an outsider with a clear sense of wandering loneliness. Moreover, since the arrival of Lu Bu, the generals of the Western Liang dynasty have felt a clear sense of crisis. Don't be fooled by Lu Bu, he is only a general now. But he was actually appointed as a cavalry captain. Don't think the rank of cavalry captain is very low. In the Han dynasty, several stones were used to form the 17th and 8th rank of the imperial ranks. The ranks of Zhonglan General, Shao Wei, Chidu Wei, and Jundu Wei were all more than 2,000 stones, and their ranks were equivalent. Especially now, in the late Eastern Han Dynasty, the main military positions that can be added are miscellaneous rank lieutenant, colonel, and captain. There are very few miscellaneous generals. Even the leaders of many separatist forces in the middle period themselves are the miscellaneous generals. For example, in history, Sun Quan used to rule Jiangdong as a general to suppress the enemy. After the Battle of Red Cliffs, Liu Bei only expressed his authority as a cavalry general. Before Jianan, Cao Cao also served as a miscellaneous general for a long time. It was not until the late Jianan period that the number of miscellaneous generals gradually increased, but their value also decreased. Before the Yellow Turban Uprising, in addition to the border counties, the county captains who were responsible for catching thieves were also abolished due to the revocation of state and county soldiers. After the Yellow Turban Uprising, the state and county armies flourished and the additional military positions were insufficient. Therefore, the position of captain was re-established and mainly used as a military position, slightly different from its previous functions. Later, when the 18 marquises rebelled against Dong, many people held the positions of colonel and commander-in-chief. Liu Bu's central military officer, the cavalry captain, holds a higher position than the miscellaneous rank captain. Moreover, he also has a Duke of Doding. And these veteran generals of the Western Liang, have not had many marquises yet. Of course, Lu Bu is becoming increasingly intolerant of airborne. People are social animals. It is always more or less inevitably influenced by the judgment of others. Either active or passive, used as a reference for one's own choice. As old subordinates under Dong Zhuo's command, the generals of Xiliang will not only do everything to defend the parts they have already occupied, but also continue to demand more as long as there is an opportunity. But cake is limited. If this continues, the person who originally had a small piece of cake will soon have to eat the residue, and when the residue cannot be eaten if you forcefully pull them together, you will find that the air seems to be filled with the smell of gunpowder. Just a hint of spark may ignite an irreversible and intense conflict. There are 3 types of people under Dong Zhuo today. With his own original team of people who started in the Western Liang Dynasty, such as Li Yan, Hua Si, Hua Xiong, Su Rong, and others. After Dong Zhuo took control of Luoyang, he expressed loyalty to him, represented by Lu Bu. There were also other central officials who compromised and surrendered, led by Taiwei Ma Ridi, Situ Wang Yun, Shangshu Pushishi Sun Rui, and others. There are many people among them who have ulterior motives and fish in troubled waters. However, for now, it is still Dong Zhuo's highlight moment. So, all kinds of hidden dangers lurking under the calm surface have been suppressed. Chapter 10. Banquets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Haha, drink. Dong Zhuo grinned and leaned against the spacious soft couch seat specially made for him alone. Holding a wine glass in his left hand, he poured it into his mouth. From time to time, alcohol poured out from the corner of his mouth. On the right hand, he grabbed a roasted lamb leg that had already been cooked 70.8%, and chewed it with big bites. Even if one hand feels greasy, I don't care at all. On the contrary, he touched his equally greasy beard and also placed his hand on the buttocks of the nearby maid who was serving vegetables, vigorously wiping his hand. A coquettish snort that scared the other party. Leave a few obvious hand marks. Dong Zhuo let out hearty laughter that men all understand. The essence of human beings is a creature that is inherently inert. So, in the vast majority of cases, sitting is definitely more comfortable than standing. Lying down is definitely more comfortable than sitting down. As the saying goes, it is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Once a hard-working person enjoys a comfortable life, it is actually difficult to return to the same level of hard work and struggle as before. Good wine makes people drunk. Beauty, charming eyes. From the impoverished and suffering land of Xiliang to the prosperous capital of Luoyang. From the hardships and simplicity of border guards, I have experienced the luxurious life of luxury and extravagance today. Even rough nerves like Dong Zhuo can't withstand such intense corrosion. He began to be somewhat intoxicated and immersed in it. Miss Dong, who has been fighting for half his life. Now, I have finally taken control of Luoyang City. Is it difficult? Can't we still enjoy it? Ha ha ha. Dong Zhuo, who grinned heartily, had a trembling face. Enjoying the juice of grilled meat and mixing it with wine, Dong Zhuo was increasingly satisfied with the delicious and comfortable feeling pumped out between his lips and teeth. Raise another full glass of wine, signal left and right, and then pour it into your mouth with a grunt. In fact, during the banquet process of the Han Dynasty, there were also many etiquette requirements. In terms of seating arrangement alone, guests have a distinction of superiority and inferiority in seating arrangements during banquets. Generally speaking, the east direction in the room is respected. The seating arrangement for guests in the hall is based on a southbound orientation. When having a feast, people usually sit on their knees and kneel down. When someone toasts, one should avoid the table as a sign of respect. However, now that Dong Zhuo is above and the generals of the Western Liang are below, they are all barbarians, so there is no need for these cumbersome formalities. Cough cough. Lu Bu didn't pour wine as recklessly as Dong Zhuo did. In his view, the alcoholic beverages of the late Han Dynasty should have a light taste like water, which naturally cannot be compared to the purified alcoholic beverages of later generations. I don't want to, but this time he miscalculated. Normally, the wine of the Han Dynasty was indeed similar to the fermented mash of later generations, with a slight sweetness and sourness, and a lower alcohol content. However, there are also special alcoholic beverages. Suddenly, taking a sip of alcohol and swallowing it, it appeared very spicy, flowing along the throat, like a fiery dragon entering from its mouth and hovering between its chest and abdomen. Hurry to eat the vegetables. In fact, what Lu Bu was not aware of was that the drinking culture was very prosperous during the Han Dynasty. Even during the Han Dynasty, prohibition of alcohol was issued multiple times. According to the laws of Han, if 3 or more people drink alcohol without reason, they will be fined 4 taels. In addition to prohibition, the court also prohibits people from drinking alcohol to save food in natural disasters such as droughts or floods. At this time, there is no shortage of real liquor. Liu Bu blushed slightly and waved to the palace maid next to him, accelerating the frequency of serving dishes. The scenery inside the Deyang palace is very exquisite. Apart from the candlestick, a layer of red carpet is laid on the ground, and the surrounding decorations are all antique. Next to the wooden door, there is also a row of bronze bells. A banquet table is arranged horizontally and vertically, with wine bottles and food on top. Next to them, the palace maids continuously brought dishes, pastries, fruits, and the like to the seats where Lv Bu and others were sitting. As recorded in the Book of Rites, Li Yun, the initial diet of the husband's ritual. At this time, people's dietary activities also contain rich ceremonial colors. As the most representative feast in culinary activities, the amount of food materials, the orientation and material of utensils, the difference in the placement of mats, and even the use of music and dance performances as a means of entertainment must follow strict etiquette requirements. Official banquets during the Han Dynasty generally followed strict etiquette requirements. Before the banquet begins, the host will organize and clean the venue and necessary utensils to show respect for the guests. Although during the Han Dynasty, there were no condiments such as chili peppers. However, in terms of the variety of staple foods, they are also very rich and delicious. Moreover, the color, aroma, and taste of these specially made dishes from the imperial cuisine are all complete, which is enough to make one's fingers skip a beat. The Han Dynasty had extremely abundant resources and a variety of edible ingredients. At this time, the staple food is mainly rice and wheat, supplemented by miscellaneous grains, and daily meat consumption is mainly beef, mutton, and pork. Fish, deer, dog, bird, chicken, duck, and goose are common foods on the dining table. Usually, young sheep, pigs, birds, chickens, and geese are all beloved meats of the time. At the same time, the variety of vegetables in the Han Dynasty was already very abundant. In the Book of Flood and Victory, there are also records of vegetables such as soybeans, adzuki beans, melons, gourds, and taro. Cui Shi's 4 People's Monthly Regulations recorded when vegetables and fruits were planted during the year, which also shows the rich variety of edible vegetables and fruits in the Han Dynasty. In addition to literature records, there are also records of common vegetables such as beans, scallions, chives, wujing, shepherd's purse, rongjie, kuei, mustard, hu, and yun in the Juyan Han bamboo slips. It can be seen from this that the types of edible ingredients in the Han Dynasty were extremely rich and diverse. The palace chefs also choose appropriate cooking methods based on the different characteristics of the ingredients and cook them, thus appearing in banquet activities. At this point, it is already possible to select ingredients for processing based on the characteristics of the dishes. In terms of cooking techniques, at this time, one has also become proficient in various cooking techniques such as frying, chopping, roasting, washing, blanching, stewing, sauce, and pickling. It can only be said that the life of ancient people was not as luxurious as most people imagined.